Welcome to the Virtual Concert Hall's live show. Today we have a real treat as we have Irene Peery-Fox and her student Dora Mayers on the show. Irene will show us how she prepares her students to perform at their best for concerts and competitions. I'm really excited about this. Let's get the show rolling. Hello everybody, welcome to the Virtual Concert Hall's live show. Today my first guest is Irene Peery-Fox. Her students have been frequent prize winners in international, national, state and local competitions, including the national winner of the collegiate division of the MTNA Young Artist Competition 3 times and second in Yamaha High School division. Dr. Irene Peery-Fox, NCTM Nationally Certified Teacher of Music, received a doctoral degree from the Peabody Conservatory of Johns Hopkins University, where she studied with Leon Fleisher. Before her doctoral work, she earned her Bachelor of Music and Master of Science degrees from the Juilliard School. While at Juilliard, she received 5 full-time scholarships. She has also earned an ARCT degree from the Royal Conservatory in Toronto and a Performing Arts degree in the University of Alberta, Edmonton. As a former faculty member of the Peabody Conservatory of the Johns Hopkins University, Dr. Peery-Fox taught in the preparatory department from 1980 to 1982. For the past 36 years, he has served on the piano faculty of Brigham Young University, becoming a full professor where she taught undergraduate and graduate pedagogy and graduate piano literature, as well as being the graduate piano coordinator. One of her students was the first prize winner of the International Gina Bacchus competition and other finalists. More recently, Dr. Irene was the chair of the Pedagogy Saturday at the National Convention in Baltimore, where she also presented. In addition, Dr. Fox was the MTNA Conference guest artist for the Washington State Music Teachers Association in June. Dr. Irene was nominated and named MTNA National Fellow by the Music Teachers National Association. At Brigham Young University, she was a recipient of the Karl G. Maeser Award for Outstanding Teaching Accomplishments and also received induction into the Golden Key International Honor Society in recognition of her outstanding contribution to Brigham Young University and world and local communities in the areas of service and leadership. She has recorded 2 CDs produced by Tantara Records. Currently, Irene is teaching. She is the emeritus faculty of Brigham Young University, where she has taught for 36 years. She maintains a large private studio with many prize-winning students, one of whom is with us today. We also have her student Dora with us. We'll see her soon, and she'll be playing some excerpts for us. Dora, age 16, has studied with Dr. Irene for the past 6 years. She has been the first prize winner of many competitions, including the Utah Symphony Salute to Youth competition, which awarded her the opportunity to perform Rachmaninoff's Second Concerto with the Utah Symphony in Abravanel Hall. She has also performed with the American Folk Symphony, the Timpanogos Symphony, and the Utah Philharmonic Orchestra. First prizes in solo competitions include the Utah Symphony Youth Guild for 4 years consecutively, and the Encore Keyboard competition in both solo and concerto categories. Dora was the alternate winner in the 2020 MTNA State competition, and this month was named the first prize winner in the 2021 MTNA State competition. Congratulations, Dora. That's really amazing. You should be really proud of that. And so it's a real pleasure to have both of you on the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's really an honor to be here today and to be able to talk about one of my favorite subjects, and that's how to prepare students for performance. And that could be in a solo performance with an orchestra, for a competition, whatever. But as you all know, because you're probably all teachers, the way we practice changes depending where we're at in the learning of a piece. When we first learn a piece, we divide it into sections and analyze the music and very slowly work out what I call NERF, N-E-R-F, standing for notes, rhythm, expression, and fingering, making sure we have all the right fingerings, the notes, everything is right in place. Then as we get to the piece to the performance level, we take on a whole new way of practicing. And that is the chart that I have emailed them as a PDF file, which we'll take a look at. If you could put up the first page of the chart, which just shows Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we'll take a look at that. That's it right there. This is a chart that I have my students fill out, and it's just an overview of what I'm going to talk about in detail. The first one being to perform the piece. I'm very specific in the order that I like my students to practice. The reason I like them to practice the performance first is because when you go to a competition or to give a recital or a concert, you never know when you're going to go on stage, and you don't often have a chance to warm up prior to the performance. And so it's really important to learn to just walk on to the stage and do it perfect first time. And perfect is a relative term. There's no such thing as perfect, right?
Of course, yeah.
But we shoot for that, right? Because then it'll be more perfect than if we didn't. But so to start your practicing by performing the piece, I think is an essential part of this chart. And you can start this 3 weeks before a concert or a competition if it's an old piece, or 4 weeks before if it's a new piece. And so you perform it, and that gives you a chance to judge how you think you did and to give an evaluation. And then you keep track as you're performing how you felt you did. And the second thing you do is spot. So in other words, you go over all the spots where you don't think were perfect enough, or whether there were mistakes or memory problems, and you spot those. And we're going to talk about those in detail, but then the next thing on the chart that I have them do is practicing medium tempos. This chart encompasses all tempos, medium, slow, up to tempo, fast. It has 3 finals, so that if you're playing with an orchestra and the orchestra goes faster than you are expecting to go, you've practiced that one speed faster. If they go slower, you've practiced that one speed slower.
Wow.
So you're safe. So you're safe no matter what. And so practicing in the medium sections, and this is what I call the musical practicing, where the students have to really study the score and make it as musical as they can. And Dora will be demonstrating that. And so that's numbers 3A and 3B. And then there's the final tempos, and you'll see on that chart that there's various metronomes and various ways of practicing the final tempos: right hand, left hand, being able to play your right hand alone up to tempo, your left hand alone up to tempo. And then the final thing, number 5, is a different type of slow work, which Dora will also demonstrate. And it takes a long time to do all of those things, especially on one piece. And so I have what I call the revised chart, where I tell them numbers 1, 2, and 5 they must do every day, even if they've got several pieces to do. So that's the performing, then the spotting, and then one of the slow works. And these are what we're going to go through in detail and have Dora demonstrate. But at the bottom of that page where it said some hints for sensible practicing, I think it's really important to know this too, that this can take a lot of stress on the arms and on the wrists and on your body. It can make you tired, right, Dora? And so some things to remember is those hints for sensible practicing. Never increase the practice hours suddenly. Do it by 20-minute per day increments. Some kids, they haven't practiced for a while, so they'll sit down and say, I'm going to practice today, and they'll practice 5 hours. And there comes your own problems. And never cram for lessons or performances. That's one thing that's tricky to get the kids not to just practice the day before.
That's hard. They always, myself included, we always try to cram things,
And that can give you arm problems. And I must say that I have a perfect record in my studio for students not having arm problems related to piano practice. I mean, yes,
that's
if they
incredible.
break their arm playing basketball or something, they have an arm problem because it's not a piano.
But that's not your fault.
Exactly. And I think part of that is due to the way I have them practice, to the way I have them prepare their technique chart. They always have very strong technique, and so they don't get arm problems. But watching these hints at the bottom are very important. Starting each practice with 15 minutes of stretching. This is one thing that Leon Fleisher really suggests. And then if you've had to go for more than 1 week without practicing, ease back into your normal hours. Just like we've said, don't suddenly go for 4 or 5 hours. And then take 15-minute breaks.
Yep.
And so with those cautions about practicing the chart and practicing in general, let's go over the chart and have Dora demonstrate some things for us. Even though I have my students do this chart in the order I've got it listed, I'm not going to have Dora do that today because I'd like her to demonstrate the practice things first. She'll be able to do it though. Dora is
no doubt.
And in fact, you can ask her. She can tell you which parts of the chart are her favorites. And I like the students to get so that they can adapt to the chart and start using it to their own benefit as soon as possible.
Okay.
So on the performance part of the chart, number 1, which we'll have Dora do at the end, but we'll still talk about it for a minute, I require that my students do 10 performances every time they have a performance. Even though, say, Dora played Rachmaninoff's Second with the Utah Symphony this week, and so she gave 10 performances, and next month she has to play it again with the Utah Philharmonic Orchestra. I still require to give another 10 performances.
Wow,
so,
I see.
So each time performing the piece is really important, and that could be for people other than your immediate family. Sometimes you're not feeling nervous if it's just for mom or dad, or it could be for anybody that makes you nervous. Or a really good thing is to video yourself, and I require them to video themselves 2 times before an actual performance and listen back and critique themselves and see how they look and sound. And another one is, this is number 4 up there, and this will sound strange to you, Chris. Have you ever done this? Performing with the stereo on so loud that you can't hear yourself. And that's a great test for visual memory. I can remember doing that a lot, putting the stereo on some pop music so loud that I couldn't hear myself playing, and play through my piece, and I could only see if my fingers were doing the right things. And
you have to trust your physical memory as well to know how to move in order to get to those keys.
Exactly. It's a great test for your memory and your physical motions. And on every performance, I ask them to do the bows and imagine themselves in the hall they'll be playing in. In fact, when I was studying with Leon Fleisher, this was one thing he really stressed. He said, imagine yourself in your dress you're going to wear, go out on the stage, take your bow, play your whole performance through beginning to end without a mistake, and then take your bows at the ends of your pieces and be finished, and then evaluate how you did. And then the next thing is the spots. So performing is a vital part of performing. That was a quote from another teacher that I had at Peabody who taught ensemble, Seth. Do you remember his name? I don't remember his last name, but performing is a vital part of performing. And I have that written up in a little plaque in my studio to help my students remember that they have to perform, because that's what you don't just play things through, you actually perform them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now we're on to spots, and this is where I'm going to ask Dora to help. After you perform a piece, hopefully you've kept really good track of where you need extra help, and you can decide from a number of items on this chart what you want to do for spotting. The first one is rhythms, and you can see them written there, and I put the metronome speeds I have my students do them at. There's 9 rhythms, and I'll have Dora demonstrate them. So each one of those in the double bar lines is a separate rhythm. You have to choose a spot that has all the same kinds of notes, all 8th notes or all 16th notes or all 32nd notes. Then you do a different rhythm every day. I used to, when I was trying to get something perfect, I used to try one each day, and then I could sense which one was really helping me the most. And then that's when I stressed. Or you can do with accents, and you can see on number 2 on the accents first, there's an accent on the first group of first note of 4/16, then the second note, and then the third note, and then the fourth note. And then I'll just go through all these and then Dora will demonstrate. I'll ask her to choose a spot. She's good at spotting. In fact, Dora, tell the listeners what are your favorite parts of this chart?
I think overall my favorite part would be the conclusion zero section perfect, because I feel like in that spot you can kind of take a look at the other elements of the chart to kind of use that section.
Yeah.
So that's where you look at like a page or a section of the piece and you look at your music and you try to get it so that you can play it 3 times in a row perfect. And I find that that's really helpful because I can, in that same moment, work on my highlight and getting the technique right a little bit and the musicality right, so it's really doing that. I just love how it's like, it kind of takes something else.
So she's talking about page 2, the medium tempos, where you choose any 5 speeds below your 3 final speeds, and you study the score first with the music in front of you. This is the musical practice. It's straight musical. And you look at that and you notice every single marking put up there by the composer and by the teacher. Yep. And play it through once, and then you close your music.
There we go. That it is, yeah.
3 times in a row, perfect. And what's so stressful about that, I've had a lot of kids tell me that that's what they feel is the most effective part of their practice. Is because when you get to the 3rd time, if let's say you've done the first 2 times perfect, and you get to the 3rd time and you make a mistake, you have to go back and start at number 1 again.
Right. And
also on the 3rd time, it makes you feel like you feel when you're actually giving a performance, like I've got to do this perfect this time.
Yeah. So there's that added pressure from yourself to get it right. And it's scary, but if you can get it, then you have more confidence when you actually perform that it's worked. You know, you actually have it in your fingers, which I think is great.
Yeah, it's very good. So that's a really effective way to practice on number 3A.
Yeah.
So Dora's going to perform at the end of this class. You can tell me, Chris, when she should. How long is souffle? So she's got a 4-minute list etude to transmit etude number 5.
Love it. That sounds great.
So she'll do some practicing on that for you, and then you tell me when it's time for her to play it through. So Dora, how do you spot souffle? Choose a spot and tell us what you're doing.
Okay. So I'm going to work on the rhythm. And this is a passage that has this consistently 30-second note. And rhythm is very easy to mark so normally it would be but when you spot it with rhythms, it would be more like.
And then you can make it harder by put on the metronome. She's doing the 3rd rhythm of the 1st line. Is that 200?
Yeah, this is right.
Put on 200.
Okay.
Then make it nice and strong. And how do you feel that helps, Dora?
I think in this section, so this passage has a lot of intervals, little intervals that you have to play. And I find that by changing the amount of speed you have between these intervals, with the rhythms, I find that.
Okay, very good. Did you try any of the other rhythms with it?
Yeah.
Yes, please. Which rhythm are you going to play now? And then I hope the listeners get the idea.
I think it's the quarter note and
long. Okay, now she's doing the 2nd one. Okay, that's good. Okay, now demonstrate how one of the accents. You can turn off the metronome. But it's important to follow those speeds that I've set there because they give you just enough complications in doing it that it helps you get the passage. If it's too
What I
easy,
also like about it is that on those when you're not playing loud, you have a bit of time. No, sorry, when you're not playing fast, you have time to think about the next group that is going to be faster, and you have a bit of time. You're not always playing everything fast. You're playing some slower, some faster, and during the slower, you have a bit of time to imagine or visualize what you have to do next, which is faster.
right, and that's really good for the brain too and for memory.
Yeah,
So it has
absolutely.
lots of different advantages practicing like that. Just playing your piece through all the time is not a good way to practice.
No, you're going to
You
give
need,
your brain more variation so that when things go wrong or things happen, you're okay, or they don't happen. Nothing happens and nothing phases you.
exactly. Perfect. Nothing phases you. Now show a little bit of the accents. Which one are you doing? Well, let's see if we can guess. Be strong about it.
Okay.
Good, good. So what advantage does that have, Chris?
Well, you're doing accents on things you might not usually think of as a downbeat or as as a place where there is an accent, and so by doing it this way, you're training your brain to eventually kind of accent all the notes, and you know clearly where the technique should be. Is that
Exactly.
would that be the right answer?
Yes, that's a good answer. What would you say, Dora?
Especially in this section, when you split up to tempo, I have a tendency to actually skip that note because it comes after like cross my fingers. So sometimes I won't even play it, and I think by doing like the accent thing, you kind of like overdo it and you overcompensate.
Yeah.
And in a real life performance, you kind of turn your finger to now hit that note properly.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes you
Yeah.
very aware of every note, not just the accented, the real accented note.
And
it
when you
makes,
accent, you actually have to put a bit more force into it. So you also have to prepare for that accent, and so that allows you to not kind of slip it, which can happen when you just run through it all and you don't really have the intention to play that accent or play that note with intention.
exactly. So it helps you to
Great tip.
play
Love
every
it.
single
Yeah.
note with intention. And then the groupings. Did you do any of the groupings in your etude? Show us the groupings and see if you can guess which grouping.
I thought she
So,
was asking me. I was like, well, I don't know. No, of course,
right?
Dora, go ahead. Your
Did you
groupings.
play Truffle, Chris?
No, I don't play Feu Follet.
It's a
Not yet.
very
It's been too scary. But not for Dora.
it's a very difficult etude. So you can see on the groupings that I've got where if you've got a whole set of 16th notes, you can go to the third one, yada-dum, da-da-dum, da-da-dum, da-da-dum. Or else you can go to the fourth one, yada-da-dum, da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum, or to the fifth one. And again, those little groupings really help for accuracy and to help you feel what's happening in tiny groups. So Dora, go ahead and show us what you've done in groupings. So she was doing in the groups of 6, which is very helpful.
Wow. Yeah, I think what groupings is that what's really helpful is especially if you do smaller groupings, it's that your brain is able to comprehend those little groupings, and then when you put them in a bigger scheme, you're not thinking about 48 notes. You're thinking about 3 3 3 3 3 or in 6 6 6 6 6, and so it becomes a lot more dissectable in your brain, and it's not as overwhelming as having to play like a 4 measure passage that's too scary.
Exactly. So breaking big, long passages into little groupings in your practicing makes it more sustainable, makes it more that you're more capable of your brain processing the great big long passage into shorter passages.
Absolutely.
And then the different articulations. Dora, do you ever play any staccato passages legato and vice versa? This is on page 2 now.
I would say more with highlights as well.
Okay, good. And so I think you're all clear what that would be. We'll run out of time if we take this much time on each little one. And then on
Although I'd
chord,
love to get all the details of it. This is really great.
yeah, well, I think that on the different articulations, just a long passage that's all staccato, play it legato instead. And if it's legato, play it staccato.
Yep.
Especially the last one works. If it's legato, play it staccato, because it helps get the articulation, even though it has to be very legato. And then on the chords, I can remember my early teacher, Dr. Gladys Egbert from Calgary, Alberta, was really a proponent of approaching the chords from high above the keys. In the Rachmaninoff Second Concerto, it goes da 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 da. She had me practice from high above the keys, dum bum 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 bum, and she'd say, you know, if you can get those accurate by coming way high above the keys and into the right chords. And Dora, you did that too, didn't you? When you were doing Rachmaninoff Second, then it'll be really easy to just do it right from the key, da 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 da. And it really worked. And so that's a chord technique, practicing difficult chords. And then repetitions, and I said play it 50 times a day. And that, of course, is an exaggeration. I'm just saying, practice. When people say, you were thinking I really made him keep track of the 50
Well,
times.
I don't know. There's a very detailed approach to this. If you say 50, you know, as a student, I would probably obey. Well, maybe not, but
Well,
I would assume that's what you meant.
That's because you're Chris. But actually, I had another student that I told him to do that, and I said, "Now I don't mean 50, but I mean practice, 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 practice." Somebody asked, "How do you get something perfect?" And yet the answer was practice, 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 practice. Is there any other way? And so this 50 times, there was a passage that he could play the whole concerto perfect, but just not this one little area. And so I said, you know, practice that a lot. Doesn't need to be 50 times, but practice it a lot. He came to his next lesson with a rubber ball, and that he had made with rubber bands. And each one of those rubber bands, and the ball was big, and each one of those rubber bands represented one of the times that he had practiced that passage. And boy, could he play it perfectly. It was absolutely perfect. So there we've got 2 sections of the chart, and there's 3 to go. Now I'm going to have Dora demonstrate the medium tempos. And these are practicing for straight musicality. And where you study the score, you do it, we've already talked about this, and you do it 3 times in a row, perfect. And you concentrate mostly on listening and playing musically the sounds you want, the dynamics you want. Because if a piece doesn't have the right dynamics, it's not perfect. If it doesn't have the right sound, it is not perfect. It has to have all of those components. So Dora, choose a section of your piece, and you said this is one of your favorites, and show us how you practice. First of all, does the audience understand what the medium speeds are? Let's say your final.
I would assume so. So obviously not at tempo and not very slowly, but at a medium that's comfortable, but also where you can really be articulate and clear with what you're trying to say, especially when a piece is on the newer side. Or is there some other definition for medium that you would have?
No, just to be specific with the kids, I say it's any 5 speeds below the 3 finals. So let's say your final is 100, then your 3 finals would be 100, 1 above, 104, and 1 below 96. And then your medium speeds would be any 5 below 96. A lot of times, young students, when you're teaching them, they have to know exactly what medium tempo is.
Yeah, they need specifically in the metronome what that tempo really is. Yep, absolutely.
And you can tell them what they are, and then they can set the metronome to get the speed, but then not play with it. But just so that they are doing a good medium speed. Because, I mean, music has to flow. You can't always have it exactly with the metronome. So, Dora, tell us what you're doing.
Okay. So, obviously,
so she's checking for her medium tempo.
The head's bop into it. She knows it's a more comfortable one.
Yeah. And then, so you do it 3 times in a row, and the first time you want to do it, you have to have a really good idea of all the methods you're doing and what you're actually trying to achieve all the time.
evaluate that, Dora? Uh-huh. Yeah, I didn't hear every single note. So you'd probably want to go back and spot that a little bit and try again to, I mean, you didn't have any note mistakes, but it wasn't technically as
I
good.
want to appreciate the fact that this is, live. It's almost like a performance, and performing like this is incredible pressure. So if you can do this somewhat good, Dora, then you'll be fine for your performance. This is just a crazy, crazy experiment your teachers and we're doing on you. And I just want to say, yeah, you're doing so great. It's not easy at all to practice in front of people and be aware that people are watching you practice. It's not easy. So, yeah.
Well, and the other thing is, have you ever found, Chris, that playing a piece slightly under tempo is technically more difficult?
Oh
Like,
yeah,
like what she was doing is several speeds slower than it goes.
yeah,
And sometimes when you try to do that, it's harder technically than it is to just do it right up to tempo. So that's why the medium speeds are so important to do.
yeah. Your brain almost has more time to kind of almost overthink, and you kind of there's a tendency to feel like, oh hey, it's this easier, oh wait, is it easier, or what if I did this and what if I did that, and oh no, and then you screw it up. Whereas if you play it at full tempo, there's some kind of automation about it that perhaps just kind of pushes you on, and you're not quite overthinking it as much. I think it's all to do with your brain anyways.
Right, and I think that's one of the most important things about doing the medium tempos. It really helps you focus on, I really don't play this quite evenly, and I don't quite have this. And so you focus on it a little bit stronger than if you're just always playing it up to tempo. It's really important to do
I
that.
totally agree. Totally agree.
And then the next one is the hands alone on medium work. So just going through your whole piece in a medium tempo, hands alone with no pedal, and trying to do it by memory. So Dora, do you think that you would be able to play your right hand alone all the way through? I'm not going to ask you to do this right now.
You don't have to. Just say yes or no.
Good reply, Chris. And so, yeah, so do you think you could play it through? I'm just asking you, Dora, but I'm not going to ask you to do it from beginning to end, right hand alone at a medium tempo with no pedal.
Yeah, I think it's like, I think I would have to work on it.
Yeah, because it's hard.
I think I could, like, not only
Mm.
So being able to do right hand alone or left hand alone. I know by the time you've done this chart, and if you've done it well, you can play each hand alone. In fact, one of my college winners was here accompanying their daughter the other day for a competition she's doing, and I was saying, Amanda, tell the class how you used to play so perfectly for all these competitions, because she won first in the collegiate division of the national MTNA. And she said, I followed the chart, every single part of it.
Wow.
And that's how I did it.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, doing all of these separate things, hands alone, hands together, all the different tempos, the rhythms, the different ways of spotting, that's how you get a piece perfect.
Yeah.
And then final tempos.
Mm-hmm.
This is at the
Let's talk
bottom
about
of
that.
page 2, and we're almost finished. Playing it through with no pedal, either hands alone or hands together, with all the interpretation. Can you see that on your chart? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then these are the tempos that you're currently perfect at, and one speed above that and one speed below that, like I've mentioned before, just in case nerves get you going one speed faster or an orchestra goes one speed slower, just any of those kinds of scenarios. And do these without the music, remembering everything worked on in the medium tempos. And I have to tell you, when my daughter, Christy Peery, studied with Leon Fleisher also, and she got the opportunity, won the opportunity to play Rachmaninoff Third Piano Concerto with the Samara Russia Symphony in their big Russian festival. And so she was studying with Leon Fleisher. So she went in for her lesson, and guess what he asked her to do? He said, okay, Christy, what I'd like you to do is play the Rachmaninoff Third all the way through, beginning to end, at a slow tempo, without pedal, looking up with your eyes closed. Now, why do you think he asked that, and what do you think the problems could be with that? The difficulties.
So was it to end the piece with the eyes up, or was it to start it?
It was to play the whole piece through,
Okay.
beginning to end, with her head
Wow.
up, her eyes closed, and just the way it
Yeah.
goes, with all the dynamics and everything,
Mm.
but just at a slow tempo. And she called me to tell me, guess what he asked me to do? And I said, well, how did you do? Well, because of this chart, because she had studied with me, I'd been her own teacher, she could do it because
That's
she had
incredible.
practiced doing it. She said, but I'd never asked her to do it looking up with her eyes closed. And I said, well, how did you do it without looking at the keys? And she says, I just peeked under my eyes.
I guess what it does, especially after you've done this method and applying that kind of thought experiment, or the kind of way to perform it with Fleischer, is that nothing will, like I said, nothing will phase you, and you're able to try different variations of performing in order to test you. So that, and what's going to happen is when you get to the real performance, it's easy, and that's what you
Right,
want. You want the performance to
exactly.
be easy and fun and comfortable, but all the work before it has to be uncomfortable in order for the real performance to be comfortable.
Exactly. So, Dora, I don't know if you've emphasized that part of the chart, playing it up to tempo with no pedal. Well, just the way it goes, but with every dynamic and not looking at the keys. Have you ever done that, Dora?
Um, I haven't really looking at the keys, not looking at the keys, but I've played it looking at those, especially in very technical sections.
Right.
Especially like when I add pedals, sometimes like, I'll think that I'm playing more accurately than I am to do with the composers.
Good. And when you're doing these, it's important to look at number D at the very end of page 2, which is when you're doing these 3 tempos, the final, the one above it, and the one below it, keep going no matter what. Imagine yourself performing in the actual place, like
Hmm.
Fleischer said, and for the one time you're using the metronome, you may stop only to change the metronome if it's different metronome.
Yeah,
So I have suggested one time of practicing with the metronome, which I think is very good.
yeah.
And then one of the 3 times must be perfect. So there's 3 times of those final tempos. And have you ever tried playing this with a recording? And I know, Dora, you've done this. And I find this to be very inspiring. This is at the top of page 3 now, number F.
Yeah, yeah.
I can remember when I was playing the Campanella, I was actually studying with Fleischer. And I just thought, I wonder how I do compared to one of these recordings. And I think I put on Andre Watts and tried to play along, and I thought, oh my gosh, you are too slow. You could add the pedal here. You could, I mean, he was so inspiring that, I mean, I didn't listen to him to do anything that he was doing, but just to play along to see if I was keeping up the momentum, and it can really be inspiring. And I have my students do that when they're going to play at the orchestra. Dora, you did that.
Yeah.
So that they learn the orchestra part really, really well, just so it's natural for them to just come in. But it's
Yeah.
very inspiring too.
What I like about this is also you start to visualize yourself either in the concert hall or with the orchestra and being on stage and being surrounded by the orchestra, and that part of visualization and part of being there. I think it's not only really helpful for a performance, but it's also very, like you said, very inspiring, because then you feel it's an extraordinary experience apart from just isolating yourself in a practice room and working on the notes.
Exactly. It's so inspiring to just do that once in a while, to just make sure you're right up there with the best of the best. And then the last one
Exactly.
is slow work. And after
Mm.
we demonstrate this slow work, I'll have Dora play her piece, and then you can comment or ask her any questions.
Sure.
Now,
Yeah.
I have them, this is just one part of this chart that includes so many different things, but I have them practice each technical part with what I call high loud fingers, which I learned from my first teacher in Canada. And she really uh, was a proponent of this high loud fingers. And then also my teachers at Juilliard, Freundlich and Kabos. And then at Peabody, Leon Fleischer was mostly for close fingers. And so why don't we learn to play with our fingers high, medium, close? All those give different colors. And the high loud fingers really give you strength and articulation, and they're wonderful for accuracy. Do you do high loud fingers, Chris?
Yeah, I like to do those high loud, especially when I'm learning the piece or practicing. When it's not fully learnt yet, it just helps for me personally to physically feel like I'm kind of approaching the key in a high level way, as opposed to just sort of being too close to it. So when I'm learning it, I like to do that in order to kind of almost like ingrain, like I think of it like a typewriter, like typing those individual notes into the head so that it feels, but also without using the tension, because I think tension is the one, like if you're thinking high loud, some people may think, oh, I've got to play everything, with this high intensity. But no, I think without using tension, to play that loudly and with the high fingers is really helpful.
And it also makes you so you can play softer. It's unbelievable. It's magical because your fingers are so into the keys and so used to knowing exactly what keys they're playing. You can just play them very light on the keys. Dora, demonstrate a passage with high loud fingers. And then we've already talked about 5B, which is slow performing, which I told you about, Christy in Russia. And so after you've done a passage in slow work, why don't you perform the piece for us? Okay, that's great. All right, now hopefully as she performs this, you'll be able to hear some of the parts she's been working on.
I can't wait. Wow, that's fantastic.
Could you hear the piano okay?
Yeah, absolutely. That sounded
good.
really good. It was sparkling and there was no clip. It was really great. Dora, I'm gonna ask if you could if there's a chair or a seat next to you, or give you pull up this piano chair, because sometimes it's hard for us to hear you all the way from over there. So if you could get a little closer to
Bring
the
the bench.
microphone. Yeah, if you could just move the bench. Perfect. Thank you for that. Didn't want to make you move when you were demonstrating, but now that you're done playing, congratulations. That's not easy to have to perform live, demonstrate all the little pieces. Congratulations. Thank you so much. Is
So
there
does
anything you
anybody
wanted
have any questions for Dora?
Currently, we don't have any comments or questions. I do have one though. For both of you, I guess. What happens when you feel like you're trying to get through the list, but you're kind of stuck on doing one or two of them? Like, let's say, those 3 times perfectly, and you just can't get to the third one. You've already been practicing for about an hour and a half and getting through it, and you haven't gotten to the end part yet. What do you do? Do you just leave it for the next day? Where do you start off, on the next day?
What's your answer, Dora? And then I'll give my answer.
Okay. I think what you do is you really try to rotate through as many of them as you can and do them each day. But you also want to consider that you hit, I guess what you would call like the base, or like the foundational ones. So stuff like she mentioned at the beginning, like 1, 2, and I think it was like 5. Like those you really want to hit every day.
Yeah.
So if it's something other than that, then I think it's a good idea just to take a breath, get some rest, and come back to it another day and really work with it.
Good, she answered that correctly. I mean, if you get stuck like that, then go on, do something else. And it was a great, I can't remember which great concert pianist that actually said that if you get stuck on a passage and you just can't get it perfect, just go on, and next day you'll do it fine.
Yeah,
So
it's true.
So if you've done what you need to on your pricing, done your slow work, done your medium, and you've done everything you can do, then just go ahead and go on to the next passage, and the next day it'll be fine.
I do have one other question, and it probably for the both of you. You mentioned in this text in the PDF that there is something, visualizing, and and that could be part of your mental practice. So that all the work doesn't have to be on and at the instrument. That you could probably sit, somewhere relaxing, and then just visualize yourself playing it. Could you talk a little bit more about that, and whether Dora, if you've done that before, and if that's effective for you?
This is on page 4, so go to page 4 of the PDF. And this is mental rehearsal. And this is something that I just naturally did as a pianist. I just was really so concerned about doing my pieces correctly that I'd go to bed at night before a performance, and I'd take my music and put it on my bedside table, and I'd turn off my light, and I'd start playing my pieces through, beginning to end, imagining and knowing every note that I was playing in the right hand and the left hand. And if I couldn't remember one of the notes, I'd turn on the light and look at the music and get it, and then repeat that passage and go on until I'd gone through my whole performance.
Wow.
And so, and I found that knowing that mentally just meant that when I was on the stage, I just knew what I was doing. And so that's under mental rehearsal. Do you do that, Dora?
Yeah, I do that sometimes as well. Or when I'm listening to a recording or so, then I'm also kind of imagining the piece as I'm hearing it.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And that's especially helpful in sections with a lot of vibrato or so that I'm trying to mimic. Like that.
And so there's no fingers involved there. It's all mental. And then on page 4 where it says memory check, that the first thing, can you play through every note mentally with no fingers? Can you play it on a tabletop with no sound? Can you play it with noise blocking the sound of the piano? That's what I was telling you earlier today.
Yep.
Can you play it with your eyes closed looking up, which is what Fleisher had, my daughter. Can you play it slowly by memory? That's on the chart too. Can you play it hands alone by memory? That's on the chart too. And can you play it without pedal by memory?
So what happens if you've only done, if you can only play, do the first 4, but you haven't, it's the night before the performance and you haven't done the last 3? Do you just tell your students, you know what, look, you sound good, you're prepared, just have fun with it? Or is the advice more like, oh, maybe you should have prepared better, but we'll do that next time?
I would probably tell them they're sounding great and just go for it. And then after the performance, I'd tell them prepare better.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be negative with them before. Right now, Dora's got the divisions of the MTNA coming up. She's got Beethoven Opus 111, and she's got
Incredible.
Bach Prelude and Fugue, F major, Book 2, isn't that right? And then she's got Fufale, and then she's got Rachmaninoff Second Sonata. And of all,
That's fantastic.
and so,
What a
I
great
mean,
repertoire.
that's a huge program. And the Fufale that she just played is probably the hardest. That's why I had her do it today.
Yeah.
Because it's hard technically. It's got all those intervals of thirds and fourths that are going at breakneck speed, and they have to be light and accurate. And so it's a good performance opportunities, as many as you can get. And then the last sheet I put on there is just fun to give students what good practicing sound like and what bad
Yeah.
practicing sounds like. Just to give apparently little kids. I don't think Dora would need this, but for those of you who have younger students, this is good for them to look at that. And those in the audience, I don't know if we need to stop, or if we could go through that, but
We could go through it. Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
and so this talks about what good practicing sounds like and what bad practicing sounds like. And so good practicing is with metronome at tempos that are not too fast, and bad practicing is no metronome and too fast.
Yeah.
And so I think you find that a lot of times you need to practice with the metronome, even though your playing can't be metronomic, but you have to play the metronome to make sure that you're not going too fast. And learning in 2 to 4 measure phrases, practicing in small sections. In the medium tempos, I have them mark the sections in the music, so that on each page there's a different section or a couple of sections, so they can start several places in each page.
Yeah,
which
it's really
helps with
important.
memory.
It's really important.
Really important. And instead of just always playing the piece through, you have those sections. Practicing hands alone instead of always together. Playing something and fixing mistakes is good practicing, and bad practicing is making mistakes and going on without fixing the mistakes in your practice, not in your performance. And mistakes are drilled until they are learned, which is really bad. And so mistakes are drilled until they're fixed is good practicing. And then many repetitions is good practicing. Poor practicing is just playing it once or twice and not doing the repetitions.
Yeah.
And then the next one is 8th and 16th note passages are practiced with high loud fingers, which she just demonstrated. And then bad practicing is no practicing on 8th and 6th note passages. How could that be? And then forte and staccato practicing is good practicing, and just everything the same dynamic is poor practicing. And musically perfect is good practicing and not paying attention to dynamics and precision and voicing. And with no rubato is poor practicing.
Wow.
So lots of different ideas on what you should be doing in your practicing, what you should be concentrating on.
Yeah, definitely.
And it takes a long time, but it's worth it. And if you've got a whole lot of pieces to play like Dora has, or a whole concert, you do a revised chart, which I was saying you pick and choose. You always do number 1, 2, and 5A. Always do that. But then pick amongst the other ones, maybe one a day to do. So you do your performing, your spotting, and your slow work. And then you pick one of your mediums and one of your different final slow performing, one of those to do every day. Because you don't have time to do it all.
No, you don't. But what I like is that this is a recipe, a preparation in order to be able to play your best. I think one of the things that give people a lot of anxiety when performing is not knowing whether they're going to play well or not, and feeling like the whole world is against them, everything's going to go wrong. And I think this preparation method gives a lot of students a security and a reassurance that no, when I go on stage, I've already done all the scary things. Someone could drop a ton of bricks in the hall. I'm fine. I've done the whole stereo on thing. the piano can start moving. That's fine. I've got my eyes closed. I know where the notes are. That all these things that can scare people from performing. If they follow this method, I feel like a lot of that can be mitigated, and a lot of fears can be diminished.
That is so true. And on this chart, variety is really good. So, I mean, once you've done this number 1, 2, and 5A, and you say, I'm going to try now doing this slow performing.
Mm-hmm.
And only do one other thing, try slow performing today. And then the next day, try finals with no pedal. And the next day, try sections each hand alone by memory. So one of the other things that we've talked about today. So when you've got a lot of pieces to play, you can just choose one of those others to do for a check to reduce your stress and do just what you said, Chris, make it possible so that a bomb could fall on you. Actually, I played during an earthquake once. I was playing the Wallstein Piano Sonata, and I was doing the and the piano started moving forward, and I thought, my goodness, I'm really getting into this. The piano's moving away from me. And then pretty soon out of the right side of my face, I saw the audience start to leave, and I thought, am I doing something wrong? The piano's moving, people are leaving, and then I saw the chandelier.
This is my worst nightmare.
I saw it, but I didn't miss a note. And the chandelier started to swing, and I thought, oh, something's going on. And pretty soon I heard somebody announce that there's an earthquake and everybody needs to evacuate the building immediately. So it does what you were saying. It's really true. It helps you so you can play through an earthquake, and it's just fine.
Yeah, you must have been disappointed. I can imagine you thinking internally, I can keep going. I can keep doing this. What's wrong?
Exactly.
Well, this has been such a great pleasure. I really enjoyed this. It's been extremely helpful for me, and I know for our audience it's going to be incredibly important. What we're going to do with a lot of our broadcasts is we will repurpose the content. So we'll do a little clip. So we might do, section 1, section 2, and so we'll send them to you, and we'll have the audience be able to, so they don't have to watch the whole lecture. I mean, they can if they want, but they can watch it in little clips, and it's helpful for everybody to do so. So we'll definitely do that. And so I want to thank you, Dora, for playing under such immense pressure. You're going to sound great. All the best for your upcoming performances, and you have such a great program, and everything sounds really great, at least from my end. I know Dr. Irene might have a few things to say to you, but I think you sound fantastic. And once again, thank you, Dr. Irene. This has been a great pleasure.
Well, thank you, Chris. You're a lot of fun to work with, and it's been really fun having you as my host.
No, it's been really fun. So yeah, thank you. And I recognize this stage. This is where Daniel Hughes played last year. And
this is
he
where
also... Yeah, he also performed in the Sound Expressivo competition, was a prize winner, and played beautifully, was such an incredible fellow competitor. We weren't competing in the same categories, but it was very lovely to hear him perform before me. And speaking of our competition, just a few brief words to our audience. We're still accepting applications until the end of November. And so get your applications in. We have no repertoire requirements at all, so you can play and program anything you want. There's no time limits for semi-finalists and finalists, so this is a great chance to play all the repertoire you want, get things out there. Maybe you're preparing for something even bigger later on. Well, we'd love to hear it. We'd love to, be a part of that process. The third thing is that right after you play, you get immediate feedback from the judges. A lot of the time in competition, you have to wait to find out how you did, or you're not sure what the judges think. You'll know right away. And I think this is one of the great advantages of playing on the virtual stage, is that the audiences and the judges are there listening to you. We have over $100,000 worth in value of prizes, from collaborations to performances in places like Carnegie Hall, performance opportunities like that, as well as scholarships and masterclasses, and everything like today is live broadcasted. As Dora will attest, this was not pre-recorded, and she couldn't do it like 3 or 4 times before we finally, got the take that she wanted. This was live, and so every round of a competition is just like that, which gives an immediacy and a freshness to it. And best of all, the audience gets the best seat in the house. Everybody gets to see the piano front on. There's no heads or anything blocking you. So it's a fantastic opportunity to perform and and to meet other musicians. So I hope you consider applying at our website below. And with that, thank you everybody for attending. Thank you again, Dr. Irene. Thank you, Dora. This has been such a pleasure. Look forward to hearing you, and all the best for your competition, Dora. All right. Once again, I want to thank also our Sound Specific board, as well as our producer, Ante Bortrix-Kudrich, who's been incredible today, going through different camera views, as well as through the PDF and everything. So really appreciate all your hard work behind the scenes. And yeah, until next time, take care, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
No matter where you are or who you are, music connects us all. We started with a dream, but now we are paving the future. Welcome to the Sound Expressiva Global Competition. Fully virtual, yet bringing musicians closer together than ever before, now on a global scale. True live, inclusivity, diversity, connection, community, an extraordinary array of judges. Get noticed by companies all over the world. Prizes, scholarships, performance opportunities. Apply to be a part of the most exciting congregation of artists like nothing you've ever seen before. We guarantee quality and leave no musician behind. We can't wait to hear you on the virtual stage.